all things Astros with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Jeff Blum. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to episode 55 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. I'm a somewhat chilly Jeff Balke, still completely blanketed in pollen, alongside my partner, Jeff Blum, who's apparently just chilling, trying to get rested before the season starts. Can't argue with that at all. Blummer, would you say that the ability to chill before the seasons is basically that it's so good that it
slaps? Yes, there it is. It's making an appearance.
That's right. You might even say
they're bussing.
That's right.
We've got a whole new vernacular on this podcast.
Man, there's going to be some drops coming.
Oh, right at the fingertips, we're ready to fire off.
I know, man. I've always wanted to be that guy that had the cool drops, like on the radio shows, where you could just throw in some like ridiculous thing. I listen to Howard Stern some, and they have the best drops of all time.
Oh, they probably got just data files for days.
It just
on some
goes
of the stuff.
on and on. Like one of my favorites is the Greta Thunberg one. She's like, "How dare you?" They pull that one out all the time. Jim Rome, when he used to have the one where he would always drop the Mel Gibson going, "Give me back my son." Like that was always a good. So I love it, man. I love the drops. They are the
I'm
best.
glad I can contribute something to this podcast.
I'm sure there will be many more to come. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and of course on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with us, and give us a follow on Twitter at Believe in Astros. You can find me at Jeff Balke and Blummer at Blummer27, pretty much everywhere on social media. Thanks to everyone who's given us 5 stars and left reviews on Apple. Please keep doing that. We love to see all your comments and questions. We read them all. For example, how sad are we that Yuli Gurriel is now officially a Marlin? Oh, it does hurt a little. It does sting.
Well, it's got to sting for both sides, doesn't it? I mean, Yuli, I would imagine if you'd asked him deep down off record and, behind the scenes, he'd be like, man, I wish I was back in Houston, just like we feel.
Things happen. This is a big boy sport, and he only got a minor league deal too, which is kind of sucky for Yuli.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about.
I know. I hope he gets some time playing.
Just explains all the fickle analytic garbage that can be out there sometimes.
Exactly, 100%. All right, a quick little pat on the back. We learned this week that we are one of 12 finalists in the Best Podcast Awards baseball category from the Sports Podcast Group. Really cool. Winners are voted by fans. So we would greatly appreciate a vote. If you can go to sportspodcastgroup.com and click on awards. You can find the baseball category there. You have to create an account and log in. But we'd love you forever if you did vote for us. Voting ends April 6th. So please hustle. And honestly, it's a huge honor for us, given we've only been on the air like 6 months. Or
I know.
Is this air or is this pixels? I don't know what they would consider this. Whatever it is.
It's a good question.
And so we've only been here 6 months. So it's a huge honor. I mean, we're on there with like John Heyman and also some of our fellow Believe podcasters are up for awards on there as well. I think there's like 10 or 11 in different categories. So pretty awesome. So I will vote. Because
I already voted. Are you kidding me?
I'll be voting.
The second I got that email, I was coming up with like 17 different faux accounts to be able to vote.
It's like jeffbalke1@gmail.com, jeffbalke2@gmail.com. Like it's exactly right. All of my friends and family, like, listen, my cousin who has this amazing restaurant in Dallas, he was all like, vote for me for Chef of the Year. And I'm like, okay, I did. Here's the payback. Bro,
take.
That's exactly right. So, Blummer, how are you doing this morning? It's a little chilly out there today, but
I'm good. I'm annoyed. I don't want to be cold anymore. I'm ready to kind of have my coffee in the morning with just a hoodie on instead of a hoodie, sweater, and sweats.
You're not going to be happy about the forecast this weekend, then.
I know. It looks terrible, man. We got rain
50s?
the next couple of days and then 50 degrees. I'm good.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm ready for baseball weather.
Oh, it's coming though, along with baseball for that matter. I mean,
yes,
we're
please.
the 15th. We're 15 days from opening day, like just
The
over 2
Ides
weeks.
of March.
I know. That's exactly right. All right, we'll do a quick read for our sponsor here, Bet Online, who is real geared up for the Final Four. I'm going to tell you. Says Bet Online remains your number one source for all your college basketball betting this season. Go Cougs! Get analysis. The Cougs house. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at Bet Online. You'll find the latest odds, bracket, contest, team matchups, game trends, updated odds for everything from live games to conference championships right through the Final Four in the championship game. Selection Sunday, Cougars 1 seed. Please God, let Marcus Sasser. This is going to sound strange, but please God, let Marcus Sasser's groin be okay.
Yes.
It's very important that Marcus Sasser's groin be healed before the. I mean, maybe not the first game. I think they can probably handle whoever. I don't know.
Well, isn't that the case?
It's
kind of like the load management,
right,
just kind of get him out there, get the lead, and then rest him. Yeah,
right. I mean, whoever they're playing, like East Tennessee, Middletown University State College,
Directional State University.
Exactly. So BetOnline is your college basketball headquarters this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use promo code BLEAV to receive your bonus. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. So there's a tremendous amount to discuss in the world of the Astros, but I want to throw out this stat that was posted by Ryan Spader on Twitter this morning, and it just absolutely floored me when I read it. So this is career strikeouts. John Smoltz, 3,084. Bob Gibson, 3117. Pedro Martinez, 3154. Max Scherzer, 3193. Justin Verlander, 3198. Nolan Ryan in the first 4 innings of games, 32-25. I was like, are you kidding me? In the first 4 innings of games.
The dude pitched for 48 years, didn't he? I mean, so that was a lot. I mean, he's got to have about 200-300 more starts than some of these guys. But no, everything that you start to peel back on Nolan Ryan, whether it be, hits given up, walks given up, and then strikeouts and some of those miraculous, ERA titles that he won without winning a Cy Young is beyond me. But the strikeout, that goes into the category of a number that will never be broken is that strikeout record. It's ridiculous how much better he was than everybody else at getting the swing and miss. And to do it in the first 4 innings and wipe out careers of guys is saying something.
When he was on the mound, guys were like, "Oh, why, God, do I have to face?"
I would
this
come
guy?
up with like Nolan Ryanitis in my lower back or something, or
Yeah, exactly. I've got a little plantar Nolanitis.
Yeah, exactly.
At the bottom of my foot. I get you. All right. So quick mention here about story in the Chronicle that the Astros and Rockets may be purchasing Fox Sports Southwest or AT&T Sports Southwest or whatever the hell the name of it is. Of course,
it doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter now. It's really fascinating to me. So back in 2012, I actually wrote. I covered. I think me and David Barron from the Chronicle were the only people covering the CSN situation when CSN went under. So this is sort of a return to what we had with CSN Houston, where the Astros and Rockets potentially taking over the network, handling everything. Look, I was a big fan of CSN Houston. I like the idea of the teams controlling the content. Blue, relax. My other dogs are downstairs barking like maniacs at something. I'm sure it's a yard guy or something, or some
cabinets, landscaper.
Yeah, it's someone who would dare to walk by the house. Blue, come on, man. So I'm really interested in this kind of stuff because I do think that this is the kind of thing that, frankly, I think when teams take over, things tend to get better, not worse. And I hope they take it over. Obviously, it could be a lot worse. There are teams around the league who are just going to get dropped. And the Astros and Rockets have a carriage deal with all the major cable providers all the way through 2032. It's pretty secure there. So what do you know about all this, Blummer, other than you're hired by the Astros, so you're all good?
Yeah, no, this is, I mean, it's kind of a crazy time, but like you said, it could benefit some of these teams. And I think it really could benefit a team like the Astros and Rockets just because, and this is just, your knowledge is a little bit deeper than mine I'm still relatively new to the business, but
Yeah.
I've been through, in the last 10 years, I think I've been through about 4 or 5 different network changes with in the Houston area. So, I remember CSN, and the quality of talent we had during that time was off the charts because they were running a great, weekly sports show. Eschenfelder had his own talk show. I mean, there was a good amount of good content coming out of CSN. It would be great to be able to go back to that. I just don't know how logistically how that happens, or if the intent of the Rockets and Astros is to provide something like that. Mm-hmm. But in the same token, you're right. It's very good to be an Astro employee. That is not normal across the league to have your broadcasters be team employees that are then put on the network television. So it's kind of a unique setup in that sense. But the tweets that I've been reading and the articles I've been reading saying if the Astros and Rockets take over, that they will absorb the personnel that puts on these shows and puts on these broadcasts. So that gave me a little sense of stability, and it gave me a sense of hope for those people because, obviously we're at the forefront. We're the quote unquote talent. Mm-hmm. And we're in a little more secure position because we're noticed a little bit more. But the people that are working behind the scenes to put these shows on are incredible.
Yeah.
And we've developed such a great rapport and I feel like we've created a great product that I want to keep us together. So that's kind of promising in the sense that producers, directors, cameramen and women, and everybody that goes into putting the show on will still be available and maybe be absorbed and become Astro employees, which would be a fantastic thing for them too, because there are some fringe benefits if they're able to, get into the organization and be that non-uniform MLB employee. But, just to take it another step, the Diamond Sports is kind of frightening what's happening with Bally's and some of these, because they're straight up I think it was yesterday, right? They declared bankruptcy, Chapter 11, I think.
Chapter 11, that's right.
So they're gone. Now what do they do?
And like some of the teams, like there were some of them, they're just like outright dropping. Like Reds, Guardians, there's a number of teams in the Midwest. They're just
that's insane,
outright losing their deals. So a lot of them are going to have to either. They said that for those teams that don't have the ability to access some of these networks, that Major League Baseball is essentially going to have to take over their broadcasting, which means they're going to be subject to whatever they just can do. One of the interesting things is because the Astros and Rockets had negotiated these carriage deals when they were with CSN, they have some cushion. They have like 10 years worth of cushion in the fact that they already have carriage deals in place. A lot of these other teams didn't have that.
Yeah, but just to ask you a question, does that encourage them to go out and purchase this network because they know that they're going to be on air?
I think that's a huge part of it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, look, teams all want to do streaming. Everybody wants to do streaming, but there's no money in streaming. The problem is that, there's a really interesting sort of, and this we could get way off track here, but there's a real interesting sort of parallel in a lot of these things to what has happened in media just in general. So they use this comparison. They talk about there was a good article maybe 7 or 8 years ago talking about these media outlets who charge you to read their content. Right. So major newspapers, a lot of them do, the Chronicle does. Yeah, exactly. They put things behind the paywall. Right. And some of them have been very successful with it. Others not so much. But one of the things that they talked about was how it's very difficult sort of put the toothpaste back in the tube. And they use the comparison of text messaging. Everyone just assumes when you get a cell phone plan that your text messaging is free. Like that's just the deal. And the deal is that they gave it away at the beginning, because essentially it is free, right? But they said once that was out, they couldn't really go back and say, okay, we're going to charge you $10 per month for text messaging, right? Because they've already been giving it away for free. So one of the concerns with a lot of these sports, regional sports networks and things like that is with streaming is that, well, we've been giving streaming away one way or another. Like if you're on Xfinity and you get the Xfinity app, right, which I have, you can stream any Xfinity channel live from anywhere as long as you have like a Fire Stick or you can use your phone or whatever else. So because that stuff is given away as part of their package, right, then what's the point in paying for a streaming package, right? So it's going to be very tricky to negotiate these things for these teams and especially for Major League Baseball. And if you are a franchise that doesn't have a carriage agreement with some of these cable networks or things like that, you're going to be in trouble because now you're going to have to figure out, okay, what local stations can broadcast our games. I remember when
go back to when we were kids and you turned on TBS or WGN. It's going to be the locals.
Exactly. I remember
but those deals aren't going to be nearly as good.
Yeah, growing up, it was on Channel 20. I remember the Rockets used to be on Channel 20, and for a while, the Astros were on 55, the tube. I remember them being on there. I was like, it was weird, and you had to flip around to find it. So because the Astros and the Rockets have these carriage agreements, it puts them in a much better position. I mean, never mind the fact that this is a big market. So it really helps that the teams have a lot of, there's a lot of leeway just simply because there's a lot of eyeballs. And as someone said in one of the articles I read today, sports programming is still popular. It still gets ratings. People still tune in.
Dude, that's the one thing that will survive most of this because like you're saying, with all of these other streaming, binge watching, you can't binge watch a live event.
That's correct. That is exactly
so live
right.
Sports does have its own niche that it can kind of exploit, hopefully.
Yeah, and streaming, you can't really get that stuff back. You can't really go back and stream. I mean, only if you have a DVR or something like that. They still haven't figured all that out with cloud streaming and everything else. I just feel like for the Rockets and Astros, this is actually a good thing. They could turn this into a reboot of CSN, which again, like you said, was a good network. They had good people. Obviously, Kevin Eschenfelder was on there. This was, I think, did this predate Julia? I know
it was, but both of us came in 2013, so we were there the last year of CSN.
Yeah, because I remember some of the on broadcast people, like Layla Rahimi, who's now in Chicago, was very good on there, and she's very good in Chicago.
Oh, they had at least 5 or 6 people in Houston that just spawned off and have done very well outside of Houston since the implosion of CSN.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully it could turn out to be a good thing, at least here. Now, in other cities,
I love that you're nurturing hope.
I am nurturing hope. I'm always going to nurture hope. I will say it might not be good for the Rangers. Just saying, they're another one on that Diamond Network.
They're one of those on that cusp, on that bubble that you're worried about blowing up. Yeah.
Maybe they could, if people, they can send their fans down to Houston. They can watch Rangers games when we're whooping up on them all year long. They can watch them down here. They'll be fine.
Yeah. You can come down from South Oklahoma.
Exactly. From what do you call it? Minute Maid. What's the Minute Maid? What do you call it?
Mimic
Maid Park. Mimic Maid Park. It's tremendous. That is tremendous. Okay. Quick injury updates. Want to run through these. Lance McCullers has been throwing again, though not hard. Says he's feeling no pain any longer. The doctors say there are no serious issues with his arm. So that's good news. He's obviously going to start the year on the IR because he just, he doesn't have enough time to get in shape for pitching, but seems like good. Pedro Leon got his first action of the season. Okay, he was 1 at bat, 1 walk. I'll take it.
Hey,
it's
OPS.
Exactly. And Michael Brantley will probably start the season on the IR just simply because he had to miss some time. He had some family problems apparently. Does that leave an opening for a certain Justin Dearden to make the opening day roster? I think
that's my first thought.
I think it does, man. And the guy just keeps hitting away. His OPS right now is 1,300. I mean,
dude,
what?
Rakes.
I mean, he just keeps raking. It is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. So, I mean, good news, bad news on the injury front. For the most part, it's pretty good news. I mean, it's early in the season. Nothing major right now, right? I mean, we don't have any major concerns for anybody, especially now they say there's no real serious problem with Lance's arm.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. You're just worried about the arms because that's the thing that we talked about last year with that rotation, using 8 pitchers, health of the rotation, health of the bullpen.
Right.
Those are the biggest things. But with Michael Brantley, I don't, him being ready on opening day was going to be a shock to me, a very pleasant shock, just because I want him to be Michael Brantley when he shows up. So if he has to take a week or two to get things right, hey, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that it does open the door for a possibility of a Justin Dearden sighting for so many reasons, because I think he's earned it at this point. And I also feel like I just love the fact of showing up and having a guy break with a team for the first time ever. That, it's like a newborn. They show up and the energy's there. It's infused. You want to sniff the top of their head and kind of suck the youth out of them. And that's how I feel about these young guys. And that's how I feel about Justin Dearden. Obviously, I've met the guy, I've talked to the guy. I really like him and I think he's played well. But, we're also at that point in spring training too, where you're just you keep looking at your watch going, dude, we're still here. You're kind of like, you're not counting the days, but you're counting the minutes, because this is that lull. These are the dog days of spring where you can kind of, you can kind of nurture an injury or try and treat it or make sure that you're right, because you've gotten the at-bats to get to this point. Now you're kind of just, the calm before the storm. You just want to ride this out, stay healthy, or start to get healthy so you can finish the last week or two of spring and go right, sprinting right into the opening day. So I'm not too worried about this portion of spring training. And to your point, the injuries aren't that drastic.
Yeah, I think the same thing with Yordan Alvarez. I mean, he's holding the bat again. He's taking swings. It's another guy. I think you just don't worry about it. You're just like, let that guy rest. I mean, because we all know as soon as he gets in the lineup, you know what he's going to do. You know what's going to happen with him. I mean, his game is going to be fine because you know what? You know why? He
slaps.
That's right. He slaps because he slaps. So there will be no problems with him. I wanted to ask and see if there's anything you're seeing in the WBC that stood out for you. I mean, Jose Urquidy is pitching in the quarterfinal today, getting the start for Mexico. Anything you've seen that's been interesting to you? I've watched a few of the games here and there, or caught bits and pieces. Pretty fascinating.
It is. It's fun to watch. It's always interesting to me to see, teams like Nicaragua, who a lot of people don't know about, like their national sport is baseball. I've actually had the pleasure of going down there and going through that country, and we'd be in the middle of nowhere in some off the beaten path kind of trail, and all of a sudden there'd be a wide open field and they'd be playing baseball in it. So I kind of appreciate stuff like that and some of these stories that get told. Great Britain is, I didn't know they played baseball or how they found guys to get on there, but the fact that they just, duct tape their jerseys together and go play cracks me up.
See the T fell off of the guy's jersey of Great Britain.
I'm like, man, why does it have to be the T? I mean, is he, it's ironic. It's just weird. These things are great. But the thing that's really stuck out to me, it almost looks like Team USA is bored. I wish they had better pitching. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
The offense and the defense are going to be great, but I just wish they had a little bit more pitching to set up our guy Ryan Presley at the back end of the bullpen.
Right.
But Team Venezuela, man, they were in the pool of death, and all of a sudden they are number one. They beat the pants off everybody in that division.
Yeah, you got to hand it to them, man. They have just come out raking.
Dude, I mean, Venezuela. I don't know if this is a bold prediction or bold statement, but I have always felt that Venezuelan hitters are better than everybody else. They are the most consistent that I've seen coming out of the Latin American countries. And this season, this WBC, I guess, is kind of showing that these guys can rake, like you're saying.
Wow, Blummer, that is a bold prediction. That's fascinating.
I know Dominican's stacked, I know Puerto Rico's stacked, but the combination of the will to win, the excitement, and the talent is where Venezuela's taking this thing.
I know, man. They've been a lot of fun to watch, and hey, good on them. And a certain second baseman that we all have a fondness for.
He's pretty good.
He's not bad. I've seen worse. I'll just put it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just put you this way. I played second base at one point in my life, and I was definitely substantially worse.
It's okay to be substantially worse than a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Jose Abreu, because I feel like Jose Abreu has been a little overlooked this spring training, and it's probably because, well, we just don't really, it's just kind of part of the deal, right? He's out there just kind of doing his thing. He's a quiet veteran guy, whatever. But he was legitimately the biggest acquisition of the offseason for the Astros. And I think part of it was it happened so early. Like, it happened right after the World Series, like first week when everything opened. And there hasn't been much. And then, of course, there have been so many big deals since then, and so many like crazy monumental contracts since then. Like, this guy, to me, it's weird that we're underrating a guy that's this good, but I feel like he's just kind of been brushed aside a little. I don't want to say brushed aside, that's not right, but just, I think everybody's just kind of like, oh yeah, Jose Abreu, right? But I think he deserves a little mention. This guy is a beast. I just saw him the other day, like taking like easy swings for doubles and stuff. I mean, just easy, like nothing, jogging around the bases. Hey, it's a double, whatever. I've watched a couple of things from him specifically, just watched his swing. I mean, he's ridiculous. I'm very excited to watch him play for the Astros this year.
I really am too. 2020 MVP, multiple All-Star appearances, Silver Sluggers, RBI guy. I always try and look at numbers, try and explain a guy, but he in his, what has he played, 9 years, I think, in the big leagues. And his career batting average with runners in scoring position is 300. Right. And it's one thing just to hit 300 in the big leagues, but to really kind of ramp things up when it matters to drive in runs is kind of who Jose Abreu is. And I agree with you in the sense, the fact that he signed so early, and it was a mutual want. The Astros knew that Yuli might have been a little bit older and regressed, and they were looking for another avenue at first base, and they went, oh, there's another wonderful Cuban first baseman that can rake, and he's 3 years younger. Let's give him a shot. And I guarantee you, Jose Abreu probably was like, man, I hope the Astros are calling. And when they did, he picked up the phone immediately and probably told his agent, get this done.
Right.
And I think it was a mutually beneficial contract because of the talent of the player and the position he's in. And he knows what he's coming into. This is a consistently great lineup with guys getting on base. And if I'm an RBI producer, I'm sitting there going, I'm now on a team that's a top 5 in on base percentage. This is only going to make me better. Plus, when I do have my hiccup, the Chicago media is not going to blow me up every single chance they get because I'm protected by Yordan Alvarez, Jeremy Pena, Jose Altuve, Michael. I'll keep going to extend this podcast a little bit longer, but he is in a very good environment. And then you add into the fact he works his tail off. He wants to succeed. He's not done yet, and he's learning a new system over here. I think he's going to be nothing but great. But I do think it gets overlooked because he signed so early. It was so easy. And then I think about, maybe around that All-Star break, you're going to have a lot of people going, the signing of the offseason was Jose Abreu.
I think you're right, Blummer. And I'm really interested by it too, because he's not only going to be, look, if you assume right now that 1, 2, 3 is, it'll eventually be Brantley, but it's going to be Altuve, Brantley, Bregman, and then 4, 5, 6 is going to be Yordan, Abreu, Tucker, probably, because they're going to split it.
Could you imagine him sandwiched in there?
Because they're going to probably split the lefties. I would think. Dusty
loves doing that. You're right.
He loves doing that. And then right behind him is going to be Jeremy Pena, right behind Tucker. Like, good Lord! I mean, that's just crazy to think of, because, like you said, not just like the home runs, not just the big RBI producers, but the on base guys. I mean, the guys at the front of that lineup, including Bregman, are all guys that get on base. They're all guys with good plate discipline. They're not crazy. I mean, Altuve is a free swinger at the first pitch, and we all know that. But Most of these guys are very disciplined when it comes to hitting the ball. And Yordan Alvarez is too. Yordan Alvarez is a guy that doesn't have to hit home runs. He'll reach a stick out there and poke one into, the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're sandwiching him. If you sandwich him in between Alvarez and Tucker, who I think we both believe is going to have like a breakout year. Wow.
Because the shift is going to be eliminated. Yordan's going to be happier. I've already seen, for me, Kyle Tucker's swing adjust to more up the middle of the field without the shift. And I think that's, to your point, that's going to make him that much better. He's going to go from a 250, 260 guy that he was last year back into that 290 range, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But, the hardest thing, if I had to guess, the hardest thing for Jose Abreu might be not forcing the issue, because maybe he forced it a little bit with the Chicago White Sox because the expectation was so high and he was obviously the leader in that lineup.
Yeah.
Now he's going to be in a position where he can be a little more patient and maybe lay off pitches and get on base a little bit more instead of trying to expand the zone a little bit to try drive runs in. That's what I think will be the hardest part, is realizing this lineup doesn't count on just him. There's 6 other guys that can produce, and maybe that makes him a better hitter and allows him to get on base a little bit more often.
He might be the 4th or 5th best hitter in the lineup. I mean, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, with all the hardware he's hauling into that clubhouse, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah, and I was listening a little bit. I don't listen to sports radio that much anymore, but I was listening a little bit yesterday because we mentioned Kyle Tucker. And your boy Adam Clanton and Michael Connor were on talking yesterday about the fact that if you're going to do a long 9 or 10 year contract, if you're ever going to make that decision, Kyle Tucker at this point in his career might be the one to do it. And it's and me, we've talked about it. I'm not a big fan of the long 10-year deals, but if you gave Tucker 9 years, he'd be 34 when the contract ran out.
Stop. Are you serious?
Because he's 25. He's 25 years old.
That might be your selling point right there.
That's the thing. You start thinking about it, it's like, God, maybe that is the right deal to make now. I mean, it is going to cause some issues. I mean, you can almost guarantee that if you were to sign Kyle Tucker to a long-term contract, you're probably basically writing the epitaph on Alex Bregman's tombstone as an Astro at some point. You're not going to be able to pay him both. But you got to start thinking about some of these things, because the Astros farm system is a little depleted. They don't have guys directly in the pipeline like they have in the past. And so you have to start wondering. I mean, that's a topic for a different day, but I do, if you look at it, it might not be the worst thing in the world.
Oh man, but we just talked about Justin Dearden, and I'm just you talk about getting into the weeds. I mean, you start going down there a little bit. You've got the Corey Julks, you've got the, Drew Gilbert, Pedro Leon, Jake Myers, Chas McCormick. I'm just trying to rattle off guys that.
Yeah, I was just pulling this up. There's a couple other ones in there too.
Because the reason I bring those up is because you start looking at organizational depth. Because if you sign Kyle Tucker to that 8-9 year deal, and then you're saying, okay, that sacrifices maybe another player. Who can I package in a trade to maybe go get somebody that can replace the other guy I can't sign?
Jacob Melton, that's another one.
Jacob Melton is another guy, yeah.
Who's been
I mean, there's it's amazing. There's still organizational outfield depth, even though that nobody rates this farm system that highly,
right?
But yeah, if you do something like that, you're going to start to look at other guys and maybe say, we got to make an adjustment here. How do we go accommodate that and bring somebody in? But
I'm glad I'm not the one making those decisions, man.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, though. When you say he'll be 34 at the end of an 8 or 9 year deal, it's pretty incredible.
I know,
as opposed to 41, 42 for a Manny Machado or Trey Turner or something.
42 for a couple of those guys. Like, wow, 42.
Mm-hmm. That's 3 years older than a Yuli Gurriel who just got a minor league deal.
Stop. That's crazy.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. One more thing I wanted to just mention here. Last week we talked about the backup catcher situation.
Oh, geez, things are getting interesting, huh?
I was just going to say, man, things are getting, I mean, they heard us, Plummer. They must have listened and been like,
They do.
Balky and Blummer are a little hard on us. I think we need to, the chip on their shoulder grew a little bit. Because look at this. So last week, Yainer Diaz's slash line was 083, 083, 167, 259. He had 2 hits, including a double.
Yeah, that's you. That's on you. You called him out.
I did. So now this week he's 261, 478, 739 with 5 doubles. He's hit 4 doubles in a week.
Oh, and did you? Well, I can't wait to hear you talk about the cannon.
Oh my God.
He's thrown 3 out of 5 out in the last couple of weeks too.
That dude's arm is insane.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I mean, I knew I'd heard it.
Mm-hmm.
But wow.
But now you're getting to see it a little more regularly too.
And he's playing a little first. I know they threw Corey Lee in there at first too, although I'm not sure Corey Lee is a long-term first baseman, but even Corey Lee's better went from 200, 333, 600, 933 to 333, 429, 722, 1151 OPS because he has 2 home runs, a double, and he's only struck out twice in his at-bats.
It's very Astro-ish.
It's very Astros. I mean, you look at Yainer's no walks and 5 Ks, so not nearly as good, but 3 of those Ks came before when he was, he was under my microscope. I think Yainer Diaz still has the inside track to get this, mainly because he just is a guy that has more power and he's got that arm. But it's really an interesting battle.
Defensive aspect, because Corey's a good receiver.
Yes.
Obviously went to a cerebral university. Let's be honest. Some real brainiacs come out of that University of California.
Plumber. I wondered if you were going to go there.
So but he does. He has
not MIT, Plumber.
Yeah, well, it's for California. It sure is compared to some of those schools. But
fair enough.
It's all in context. But he hasn't shown that defensive prowess, and I think that if you're going to, as it stands right now, even as good as Corey Lee is offensively, I think you kind of give the edge to the defensive side as far as throwing runners out in this new modern day baseball game that we're watching.
Yeah, I think you're right. And also, let's be honest, he can play first base, right? Yainer Diaz has the ability.
They're both. Sorry to cut you off, but they're both really good athletes. I know Corey Lee can actually play third base. He's learning first base, but both of these guys are very good athletes.
Yeah, and that's important when you're honestly, with catching prospects, most of these guys, if they're really good, they're not going to stay at catcher forever. You're going to want to find some other positions for them because they're going to get burned out at that catcher position.
The Biggio issue, yeah,
right, exactly, and I think that's going to happen. But let's just say Corey Lee's definitely going to make his mark on the Major League Ball Club at some point during the season. Hopefully not because of injury or anything like that. But look, they've obviously turned their springs around a little bit. I'm going to be really interested to see how they do the rest of the spring. Also, just another little note: Ronel Blanco is starting a game.
I saw that too.
Ronel Blanco he's now stretched out to like 4 innings, I think they said.
Hey, man.
I don't know, dude. Keep an eye on Ronel Blanco.
Forrest Whitley, I believe, got sent out, correct?
Yes, he did. They wanted him to have more. They wanted him to have chances to pitch.
So I get that, but the interesting thing was when we first did our 3 broadcasts on AT&T, we had Dana Brown in the booth. Ronel Blanco came out and absolutely destroyed his inning, just wiped out 3 guys in a row, throwing about 8 or 9 pitches. And Dana Brown sat there and goes, "Why isn't that guy needs to come out again?" And now all of a sudden we're seeing Ronel Blanco come out again, and again. And it kind of makes you wonder, if they're looking for starting depth, maybe they don't have to go externally. Maybe Ronel Blanco can help fill that void and be some starting pitching depth.
Right.
I think it's fascinating that he's getting that start.
Well, especially given the fact that they're probably going to, especially early in the season, they're probably going to throw a bullpen game or 2 just to kind of give some rest to some of these guys as they're getting stretched out and getting into the meat of the season.
Well, I think there's five. You can say there's five legit starters, but if you have a guy like Ronel Blanco who can open a game and go 4 or 5 innings and turn that bullpen game into a little more abbreviated bullpen game and give those guys 6 starts, because we've seen that in the past with the Astros trying to protect some of these arms, and you got to remember. These guys got done pitching in November last year. So if you're going to protect those arms and maybe not suppress innings, but try and push the innings to the back half of the season, maybe you do come out when you don't have months without a lot of days off that you can go a 6-man.
Blummer, this is why they pay you the big bucks. You're right. That's exactly.
I'm trying.
I agree 100% with that. I think if the Astros are smart, and I think they are quite smart,
they've proven it.
I think you're gonna see some of that. You're gonna see some of that, giving guys a little, not quite pushing guys as hard as they could. Next week when we do our next podcast, I really want to dig into the bullpen discussion, because I think it's an absolutely fascinating thing. Because look, for whatever you want to say about the Astros minor leagues and anything else, they're going to have question marks at who they're going to bring in to the bullpen this year. I mean, if they keep only 8 guys, they already have 6. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, they already have 6 guys that are absolutely guaranteed spots. They're just
like
guaranteed
2 spots now,
right? And that Dusty's going to want a lefty, and so Matt Gage is probably going to be that lefty guy. So it leaves 1 spot for guys like Seth Martinez, Brandon Bielak, Anoli Paredes, Ronel Blanco. I mean, with a huge amount of talent that is going to get left off of this roster and is going to wind up in the minor leagues. So we need to dig into that next week, because I'm really interested in how that's going to shake out. Yeah.
And again, it just goes to depth. Even though they are not highly rated on everybody's list as far as farm systems, they still have enough to go out there and compete.
It's so weird to think about that. We've talked about it a lot, and I know it feels like we should be worried. It feels like those are the kind of things we should be like.
Well, don't you feel like sometimes you look to be worried, but you're kind of like, oh, that guy. Oh, that guy. That's how I'm starting to feel that way. And I want to be concerned, but I'm like, we'll be all right if that guy can mix in. And they're not. Right. And these prospects aren't the sexiest guys on the prospect list, but they're very good competitors. And I think that's what the Astros realize.
Yeah. And a lot of it's going to depend on how they pan out, what they do. But my goodness, there's some legitimate talent. And I think, and it's not just in our bubble either. There's no denying that Justin Dearden can hit the damn baseball, right? Yeah. He's done it at every single level. It's not like this is a fluke. He's been doing this since he got into the minors. So you can't just turn around and say, well, it's just because he was overlooked, that's on everybody else.
It is on everybody else. And it was also the year he was drafted in 2020 when you only had 5 rounds. So, I mean, there was a lot, that was some chaos going on there, but it turned out to be a good choice by him to choose to sign with the Astros, and at the same time, Justin Dearden, the Astros are in a different situation because the expectation on their prospects is completely different. They're not coming in to save third base for the New York Mets like a Beatty is. They're not coming in to solidify a rotation. They're coming in to kind of begin their baseball lives as complementary pieces or role players and eventually turn into that superstar, hopefully. So I think that's where these guys are protected a little bit and they can be inserted into these lineups without the expectation of having to produce immediately or have to hit 300 or have to drive in 75. They can come in, get their feet wet, figure out who they are, and contribute every now and then, and they'll be fine. That's exactly what happened with Jeremy Pena before he found himself and became a juggernaut.
And not only that, but they can get asked to play in important spots. Look at what happened to David Hensley, right?
Man, great call.
He just gets thrown into the mix. And the thing is,
prospect.
I think what's cool about it in these kinds of circumstances, because there is so much talent, there is less pressure on these guys to be perfect. They don't have to. Look, Hunter Brown came in end of last year and just okay, call him up. Let's see what happens. And he was fine. Because what happens if, last year, if Hunter Brown comes out and just kind of falls on his face, the Astros still have incredible, pitching depth. So there's no real worry. I mean, they sat Luis Garcia and Jose Urquidy for the entire postseason, essentially.
Those guys are 3/4 for a lot of other organizations, if not higher.
Yes, 100%. So, yeah, that's the thing. I think there is a misunderstanding, I think, maybe, of what's happening with the Astros depth-wise. I think their depth is much better than I think people are giving them credit for. And, they're bringing guys up and they're showing out, and good for them and good for us, because what we've obviously learned is that
they're bussing.
That's basically that's what
the timing has been amazing on those.
I can't help it, man. I'm putting together a library. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be the Blummer drops. It's gonna be all. Yes. I can't wait. Blummer, any final thoughts? I know you were at the rodeo this weekend. Are you going again?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, all of a sudden I'm good friends with Cody Jinks, and what's kind of funny is. We got backstage.
Of course you are.
I get to meet Cody Jinks, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden this behemoth of a human taps me on the shoulder and goes, "Hey, Blummer." I turn around, it's Roger Clemens. So I actually got to hang out with Roger Clemens also at that Cody Jinks concert, which was just a little bit of a side note. But I don't call a game, I think, until the 25th and the 27th. But March Madness is coming up. I'm excited about the Cougs' chances.
Weekend.
I mean, there's a lot going on. For this being a lull in spring training, it is the perfect time to be filling out brackets and talking a little smack as far as colleges are concerned. So that's kind of where my mind's at, to be honest. The WBC is cool, but I'm kind of like in this, I'm ready to move on kind of thing. I'm so ready for baseball. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, me too. And I'm with you on the brackets. Like it's such the thing that's great about March Madness too is how condensed it is. It's like packed down into this just a few weeks of just like crazy intensity. And of course, this weekend is the first weekend, and it's always it's the chaos. Best. It's just pure chaos. Like it's one of those things where you can just have 3 televisions on at once if you wanted to, and just like all day long, nothing. But I'm actually glad this is spring break because a lot of my clients are very quiet this week. They're all on vacation, so
good for you.
Nobody's gonna miss me on Thursday and Friday when I'm planted in front of my TV watching. I don't know who's like a weird one. Like I saw that. Texas A&M Corpus Christi got in. And then you got
they're going to be introduced to Alabama real quick.
I know, right? And then you got TSU playing today. So another local favorite. So get all the Texas teams in there. Get all of them in there. I'll take them all, and then I'll watch them all fall to the University of Houston Cougars.
Believe it. Yeah, that was funny. I mean, just total Texas pump session right here. I had a buddy he goes, "So how many universities are in?" I'm like, dude, I go, "How much time do you have?"
Exactly.
I start rattling off all these schools, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there are quite a few." Like, dude,
I will tell you this. The one thing that college basketball teaches you is that there are some schools out there you've never heard of before. I mean, there are so many. Like that's the great thing about college basketball is when there's some small teams that get into the round of 64, and you're like, who the hell is that? Who ever heard of that team? You're like, where are they even located? Right? That's another thing.
Directional state, man. They'll shock you.
They really will, and I love it. I love like St. Mary's. Remember St. Mary's a few years ago, and everybody was. The nuns were pumped up, and I was, you gotta love it, man. Final Four is coming. All right, we will be back next week with a fresh pod brought to you by Bet Online. Again, a huge thanks to all our listeners and viewers. You guys have been great, liking and subscribing. Get over to bestbaseballpodcast.com and drop a vote in for us. We're super thankful for that. Obviously, keep giving us the 5 stars and reviews on Apple. We appreciate that as well. You guys have a great week and a great weekend. Go Cougs, and we will see you next week. Go Astros.